Hello, my beautiful people. Welcome to Let's Get Real with 7 podcast. Today's podcast is called Let's Get Freaky with It. And today I have some amazing people with me that I will allow for them to introduce themselves. So go ahead.
My name is Bakanzi Moise, and I am one of Seth's brother.
And I'm Jenny, I'm Bakanzi's wife.
I'm Demetrius, I'm Seth's best friend.
And I'm Chanel, and Demetrius' girlfriend.
And Seth's friend.
And Seth's friend, yeah.
Okay.
Wow, you just weren't going to put that in there.
Well, because, I didn't. Okay.
Well, today's topic, you guys probably already guessed it, is about sex. Ultimately, what we're trying to convey is how important it is to wait until marriage to have sex. And if you haven't, why it's okay, because we have this amazing God who forgives and who loves us unconditionally. And that's why he died on the cross. Jesus died on the cross for us and provided us grace. And so we'll just dive into it, actually. So the first question, why is it that you guys feel that it was important for you guys to wait until marriage? So this is technically for the three of them. I'll get to you later. So go ahead, Jennifer.
Do you want to start?
Ladies first.
Okay. Or I'm waiting until I'm married to have sex. It's because I feel like it's important for me and myself, and guarding my own heart and not just having sex for the pleasure of it, but waiting till the context of marriage, because I feel like that is the best place for it to be, or for it to happen. And it's been something that like my family has talked to me about, and the importance of waiting. I think that as I've grown up, I've fully seen like the things that I can avoid in the heartbreak from not allowing myself to engage in sex with whoever, or the people that I'm dating at the time.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, very similar. I think for me it's important because that's like when I read the Bible, that's what I hear is to wait. And so for me, I wanted to experience it in the context of what God desires and what he wants. And I learned too growing up that's,
Yeah.
you know, like I was taught the same things. And so I just wanted to experience that in the context of marriage, as that's like what God says. And so, yeah.
Yeah, I think very similar to what they said, because the Bible the Bible tells us that. And also I think just for our own self, it does help a lot, because I feel like when you have sex, I almost feel like, I guess I've only had it with one person, my wife, so it's different. I just feel like there's a part of me that she only gets to experience. Mm-hmm. So I felt like if I was doing that with multiple, like a bunch of people all the time, it would be harder for me. And I think for me personally, it was one of those things where I told myself, it's like, if I want to wait and have someone that's done the same thing, I have to like hold myself accountable and do that as well. And so that's not me saying that if someone has, like, they can't get the same feeling or any of that stuff. I think it's just something that's supposed to share between two people. Okay. Someone that you love. And I think that's why I wanted to wait, because I only wanted to share with one person and not like a lot of people.
Okay, well, there's definitely a question I want to ask, but I probably should wait until later. But for you, Demetrius, for people like you and I who have not waited until marriage to have sex, why is it that you have decided now to chase that aspect of waiting to have sex before marriage?
Well, mainly it started with I was just looking for something more in relationships, because I was going through relationship to relationship, having sex, and it wasn't what I wanted. It wasn't fulfilling me. So then that's when I kind of started, and I got led to God more. And then I was listening, and then it was like, okay, well, I think I should start taking this out to really connect. And that was what I really wanted, the connection. And then when I started doing that, I got out of a bad relationship, and luckily I found her. And then the connection we made through not having sex and just being together is exactly what I was looking for. So I figured to stick with it.
Okay. So for you, basically, what people make it out to seem like is sex is just like brings you even closer to the other person, but almost in a sense of outside of marriage. I guess you guys could, I don't know if you guys could really answer because you guys didn't have sex outside of marriage, but for you, you didn't have that connection with that person as much as you thought you should have. Because sex is supposed to be what you're super connected with the other person with. But for you, you're even closer to Chanel than, if I'm right, your past relationships, even though you guys didn't have sex. Could you hit more on why do you think that is?
I feel like sex is a tool to get closer, but it's only done right in the confines of marriage. When it's done outside of marriage, it's almost just for the sake of the pleasure. So that fails after so long. And then when you're looking for a real connection and you're only going to sex, it doesn't last that long. When you're waiting and you're actually getting connected in a spiritual and emotional way, you actually feel satisfied way longer in the end than you would with just only having sex, relying on it.
Okay, so I guess this question can roll into almost what you just touched on. So why do you guys think that churches make sex this like extremely horrible thing? Like anybody can answer.
Yeah. I mean, I think first of all, I think it's, and I mean, I'm not a pastor. I don't want to say any church people are stupid or any of that stuff. I just want to say, like, I mean, a lot of the, first of all, if sex wasn't good and it didn't feel good, you wouldn't need to tell people not to do it. They just wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
So I think it's very wrong when churches and stuff try to make it sound like sex is bad. The reason I think it leads actually more people to having sex is because then they stop trusting the church. Because if you tell me sex is bad, and then I end up having sex, and I figure out that it's definitely not bad, it's really good and it's fun and all that kind of stuff, it's going to make me, what else are you telling me? What else is the church telling me that I can't believe? Then actually that leads me a little further from Jesus, because you're telling me how awesome this Jesus is, and like, you've already lost a lot of my trust by you telling me sex is bad or this is bad. And I think for me personally, I don't know how it started or why the church started saying that sex is bad. I mean, we were raised by the same person, so it's like I was raised in the same home. Our mom told us sex was bad, all this stuff was, and I've been married and I've had sex, and sex is definitely not bad, So in my head, I'm just like, so I just don't know where. I mean, I personally would also want to figure out, like, where did it start to where they were like, oh, this is what we can tell people to stop them from having sex. Because I know what they're trying to do is the right thing. They really are trying to just have you protect your heart. And because the Bible does say to wait and have sex with one person, but they're just doing it in the wrong way by saying it's bad, because it's not bad. I mean, if it was bad, God wouldn't have created it. Also, Jesus, like, God didn't create anything bad. Everything God created was good. So if you say sex is bad, you're also saying that God created something bad. And I just think they really need to find a way to, like, just tell kids. Like, I think personally for me, if God does bless me to be a parent, and I am a Christian man, I go to church and I love Jesus 100%, I'm going to tell my kids the truth. I'm not going to tell them, go have sex. I'm going to encourage them to wait. But I'm also going to tell them, look, sex is fun, is great and everything, but this is the reasons why you should wait. The Bible tells us this. Also, you can catch something. Also, when you have sex with people, you're just trying to fill a void that you can only fill with, like, one partner, like the person that you're married. So I think just telling them the truth, then they get to decide. Like, they actually get to decide. Because at the end of the day, even though mom told us all these things, if we wanted to have sex, those of our siblings that wanted to have sex, they went and had sex. So it clearly didn't stop us. I just think the church, personally, for me, needs to figure out a way to, like, because I was one of those kids that was told sex is bad. But I also had friends that were saying sex was great. So I just think we got to figure it out as a church where we can be honest and just sit down and have an intentional conversation with our kids, with our youth groups, and tell them, sex is great, but this is also why you shouldn't do it until you're married and stuff like that. So I don't know where it started, so I don't even know if I answered your question.
No, you did great. So, if anyone hasn't met you,
I feel like they just articulated the wrong way.
Big word. Can you define what
They say it the wrong way. It comes out the wrong way, and I feel like they're trying to scare you into not doing it instead of, like you said, leading you the right way. They're just trying to, like, don't do it, it's bad, you're going to hell. All right, well, I don't want to go to hell, so I'm just not going to do it. But then it's like you figure out, well, this is actually kind of good. I'm going to just keep doing it.
Okay.
So it should articulate it a different way.
Yeah, I think it's like an approach out of fear, just to control something, rather than the honest answer, like you were saying, of just explaining what it is and explaining the importance of why.
Yeah.
Because that doesn't, like, it's still important to wait. So I think it takes away from the importance of that when you just lie and say it's bad. Like, I think that just comes out of fear.
This next question, you two probably can't answer, but you two can. So, so let me try to word it properly. Because we just talked about how we're scared into thinking sex is bad. So now you guys are married. And now, how do you guys flip that switch to where it's like, okay, it's not bad to have sex, but it's actually a beautiful and a good thing? Did you guys struggle with that aspect of it? And if you guys did, what did you guid you guys do to overcome it? What did you guys do?
I've heard of people struggling with that before, and so I thought maybe I would, but I actually didn't. I understand if people do though. Like I don't think that's weird, or like I understand if that was the reality. For me though, I didn't experience that. I think it just felt like this clear change in our life of, okay, it's weird. It's like when you get married, it's like a minute that you are married. Like the next minute you're married. It's the weirdest thing ever.
Yeah.
But to me, I don't know. It just felt more natural to just jump into that. I don't know if I just felt I was ready to like enter into that part of life and be married, and I don't know. It just felt like a natural transition. So I didn't have that experience of struggling because it felt like, oh, this was always wrong, and now I'm supposed to believe it's okay. For me, it just felt like, oh, like I know that this is right. We're married now, and that was like the next thing. So I do understand that, and I understand if people feel that way. I think I just would encourage people to understand what's true and like go back to the very source of where you started that taught you that, you know, you aren't supposed to have it until you're married, and like realize what it is created for, which is marriage, and just go back to the truth.
Yeah.
So.
And I think it honestly goes back to like the question that you asked about the church. I think a lot of the people that struggle with, because I've had someone was telling me a story about this two couple that were raised Christian. The girl in his entire life was told how sex was bad, and she fully believed that sex was bad and stuff like that. And then when she got married, they went 2 years without having sex. I'm just like, first of all, for me, that sounds crazy, because that would be terrible. Because I think part of being married, sex is a huge part of marriage. It's something that you both get to share. And I think that's where it comes into like, that's why we just need to be honest. Like we just got to be honest with our kids, with their, when they're the right age. Because like she was so afraid, because she almost still felt like, because like she said, 1 minute you're not married, the next minute you're married. And it's like, oh my gosh, now we can do this thing that we were told that we shouldn't do. So I think for me, being honest was the biggest thing. Luckily for me, I didn't really struggle with it. Like I was like waiting until the exact date. I was like, I am ready for that date to come and stuff like that. So I personally didn't struggle. But like she said, I do understand when people struggle, because it's super crazy to go from, like if you've lived for 25 years of hearing how sex was bad and you truly believe that it was bad. And then one day you're like, oh, okay, it's bad. And then 10 minutes later, now we could
let's go crazy.
We can literally do whatever we want. It is super crazy. So I think I've heard of people that like really, really struggle with it.
Yeah.
And so, but I think it all just honestly goes back to like being honest. Like if we're honest with their kids, I mean, when they're in the right age, like if you're honest with them and just tell them the truth. Also, if you're a good parent, if you're also like are raising them correctly, they will know not to have sex until married. And also, if they do have sex before marriage, that doesn't mean your kid's going to hell.
Yeah.
It just means we all make mistakes. And I hate how the church has made sex like almost like a bigger sin than every other sin.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, like sinning is sinning. Like I can't say that because Meats had sex before me, like, and then I've lied or I've stole, like, him having sex before marriage is so much bigger than me stealing. No, at the end of the day, we've both committed a sin, and it's just as wrong as anything. And I think church, we focus so much on like, don't have sex. Like that is the biggest sin. And they also forget to work on helping kids learn not to steal, to spend intentional time with Jesus and all that kind of stuff. I just think once it just goes back for me to like, as a church, like we need to just be honest. Like, the Lord loves us so much. Like, let's be honest about that. Also be honest that the Lord forgives us. Like, you know, God doesn't love me more than he loves Meech just because Meech didn't wait and I waited.
Yeah.
No, like that's not how it works. Like he forgives Meech just as much as he forgives me for all my other sins. So I just think, honestly, we just got to be honest. I don't know how else to explain it. So yeah.
Okay.
But we didn't struggle.
It doesn't sound like you guys did at all. Not one bit.
We did not have,
you guys were ready
we did
to
not
go.
have an issue.
This question is, so you're told not to have sex before marriage. You get into marriage, and now bad is good. You guys can do it. How do you guys go about making sex enjoyable? So, and for people, because I feel like I know some people who are just in a relationship, who are married, more in our culture, where sex is just kind of like boring, like it's just to have kids. It's not to actually have fun.
I mean, one thing for me personally is like, before I got married, I made sure like all my close friends that are married, I talked to them because this is like such a huge thing, and it's not the same as dating. Even if you like had sex before, like being married is not the same as because you had sex with someone you were dating. I think it's just such a, like I just also asked them like, what are things you struggle with? What are, you know, because we just assume once we're married, sex is gonna be perfect. Everything's gonna, no, at the end of the day, it's not gonna be perfect, and things like that. So I just asked, like I was asking him, and one of the biggest advice they gave me is like it is okay to communicate. Because and I keep giving stories that I know, like, he gave me a story because, like, the friend that was giving me advice is a counselor. Like, he was meeting with a couple that had been married, and they had been having sex for, like, a year where one person, they were doing it a certain way, and only one person was enjoying it. But they felt bad about telling them because they didn't want to hurt their feelings. So now they're having sex for a whole year, and they're wondering, why we have so many issues? Like, that person that is not enjoying it as much, is not communicating, so the other person doesn't know that they're not enjoying it.
Yeah.
So it brought out even more issues to where it would have been a simple thing of like, hey, I don't like it this way. I know you enjoy this way, so like sometimes let's switch it up and do something. Yeah. So I think for me, in our marriage, what we know is, first of all, like we both won't like the same exact thing all the time. Like maybe there's a way that makes her feel better, there's a way that makes me feel better. So part of being in a relationship, you don't only think of yourself, like not even in sex and anything you do, you're not always just thinking of yourself. So we just talk about that. You know, if she doesn't enjoy it, we talk about it to figure out what that makes her like enjoy it more. And like if I don't like something, I just tell her, hey, I don't like it that way, let's try something different. Then we try. So I think with a different position or any of that kind of stuff, it just comes to the two people just communicating. Yeah. Because communication, like in anything you do, as even in like people dating, if you communicate well, your relationship will be better, because we always assume that person should know. But at the end of the day, Jenny does not know what I'm thinking. So if I'm not enjoying something, she doesn't have the power to know, oh, Bukanze doesn't enjoy that. But because she loves me, and I love her, and I'm honest with her, and I tell her, hey, Jenny, I don't like that. Then she decides, okay, let's do something different also. Let's switch it up here and there. So I think, for me, communication is just like the biggest thing, and at least for us too. So we don't know what else has worked for other people. For us, the communication is like the biggest thing that's helped us.
Yeah, I think when that couple that we talked to told us about communicating with sex, I hadn't even really thought about that, yet. And so I thought that was just such good advice, because I think, I don't know, I think then you're just missing the part of being aware of the other person and what they need. And it's such a cool opportunity to like care for the other person. I think sex is. It's such a cool thing when you actually communicate about it and you actually understand the other person. It's a really loving thing to do, to communicate and talk about it instead of feeling bad or feeling embarrassed or feeling anything or just not knowing, or I don't know. I feel like communication has just been so helpful for us, of just taking a step to care for the other person, because I think at the same time, like we both in it, we just want each other to be happy as well. Yeah. So if we're not communicating, then we're not even helping the other person. So that's been the biggest thing, of just making sure we're on the same page, where, everyone's feeling like they're being heard, and that has been helpful.
So, Mies, this is a question for you. What do you say for those people that, let's say if I was just a friend of yours, and we're talking, and I'm like, hey, Mies, like, why are you deciding to away with Chanel now? Like, what if she is terrible in bed? Like, what if she's just horrible? Now you're stuck with someone, and she sucks at sex, and now you're miserable. I think sex is such a big part of marriage, which I don't think people really understand about that. And so what is your response? Because I feel like I hear that a lot. Like, okay, well, why are you waiting until marriage? What if the sex ends up being bad? What if the other person is not really good?
So would I be like basing it off like past relationships and
just
judging her off that? Or is it just...
Relax. That's
I'm
gonna get this. Like, I'm question. Okay, so... Okay, I guess we can ask it that way. Geez, okay. No, so how would you respond to that though? Like, okay, so why are you deciding what if she's not as good as the last person? Or what if she's absolutely miserable and she just can't satisfy you the way you want to be satisfied?
Well, that's when communication comes in, just like they said. Because if she's not doing something that I would enjoy, I would have to communicate that, and then also it just comes with time too. because when you first have sex, it's not going to be the best. So it just comes with time, year after year, and then eventually she knows what I like, I know what she likes, and then now we're rolling. So it's like
Okay,
just-
it was pointless to ask you that question. Chanel, okay?
I'm not gonna answer it.
No, listen. Okay, no, that was actually a very valid point. I just didn't think it was going to be as simple as you just made it, and I didn't like how simple that was. But Chanel, okay, so now let's think about it. So Meech has had a past, okay? So now how do you go about not looking at that and being insecure about certain aspects of that and being like, okay, well, what if I'm not good enough? Or what if I can't satisfy him as much as the other person is? Like, how do you go about making sure you don't even get to that point of being so insecure? How do you work through that?
I think I kind of thought about this at the beginning of our relationship, and that was something that I was like a little bit worried about. But I think what it comes down to is like us deciding to wait was like a big step for him that he wanted already before we got together. And so I knew it was something that was important to him. And like with that, I feel like because he has chosen to wait on his own, and then when I told him like right away, like, hey, I'm not gonna have sex with you, like this is not a thing that is happening, he was really supportive and loving in that. And so I feel like I'm not worried about the past because that's from a long time ago and that's before. And I think that he's more geared toward the future and not thinking about all those other previous things. Because even like in our relationship now, the way that we communicate, the way that we work together, he never ever brings anyone up. Like it's never like, oh, well, this girl used to do this or they used to, things like that. He just communicates like me and him and not based on old stuff. And so I think that I don't think it will be an issue because I've already kind of worked through it on my own of like, hey, it's okay. Like you haven't had sex and he has, and it's going to be probably weird at first and difficult, but I know that he loves me and cares about me. And so I'm not really worried about the past stuff that has happened, I would say.
And
Okay.
also, I can't judge her based off other people,
Yeah.
and
That was
that
my
would
next
be
question.
that would
Thank
be
you.
wrong. Like that would be
Okay.
terrible. Even just in a regular relationship, of I break up with a girl, I get with another girl. I can't judge her based off her past or her with another person, and now I'm just living in the past the whole time. And that's
See, but you make it seem a lot easier than it really is. Because I feel like as humans, we do tend to.
well, yeah, you're gonna judge, but you can't hold her to it.
Okay, well, that's a very valid point, but I'm just saying. how do you-
And well, okay, so let me help. So I feel like in those times when it happens, we're like, okay, we're thinking about something else. We literally just tell each other, like, hey, here's how I'm feeling about this, and I know that like it feels silly, like what I'm saying or whatever's going on, but we just take the time to listen to each other, and I feel like that's been something that's been good for both of us because I'm not sure that was something that was happening for him before. Of someone like actually listening, like, okay, let's work through it together. And so it's just different. Like our relationship is just not the same as what he's been used to. And so like he doesn't bring all of that negativity to us. And like same for me, not bringing any negativity of other people towards our relationship. So it's like, it is hard. It's never like everything's sunshine and rainbows. No, but we just talk about it and communicate because that's where it all comes down to is, okay, how can I communicate this and how can I be honest and not hold back? Because I think when you hold back maybe how you're feeling about something, like you'll hold back in other areas too, and that could cause issues and tension. So trying not to do that and be honest with ourselves and then be honest with each other.
Okay, so now just to help the audience in a sense, let's say hypothetically, you are like me, I want to have sex, and he's like, no, I'm still trying to wait. Now, for some people, I feel like there's two ways of looking at that. You could be like, okay, so why is it that he doesn't want to have sex with me? He's already had sex with a bunch of other people, and now you're sitting there like feeling like you're not good enough because he doesn't want to have sex with you. How do you think you would, I guess both of you guys handle that? Like, so how, in your sense, how do you communicate to her that, hey, like, it's not that I don't want to have sex with you, but this is where in life I'm trying to get to. And for you, how do you get to a point to understand, like, okay, maybe it's not because of me and I'm not good enough, but it's because he's trying to get to a certain aspect of his life, if that question makes sense. I'm not sure if you got what I was putting
Well,
down.
for me, I would have to like constantly remind her of what I want, and then also show her that I'm very committed to her, just her, and I want to love her and be with her spiritually and emotionally. And it's not all about sex, and I want a future with her. It's not about right now. I have to continue to do that every single day, and not just one day out the week. It's week, month, everything like that.
Yeah, I
think
feel
that's
like that is something I've definitely thought. Like, how come you just want to have sex with me? Like, you did with all these other girls, right? But then I also like remind myself of why I'm waiting, and so that helps. But I think even there's been times when I've felt that way, but I knew like I shouldn't. But it's like at that moment I felt that way, and I brought it up to him, and he just like talked me through it. And was kind of like, you know why I was having sex with those other girls, and you know how that ended, and why it was so bad, and the whole point of waiting for both of us is because we do see a future together, and putting sex in that, I feel like for both of us could ruin that and could really mess that up, because it's like then we're only thinking about that and not about knowing each other personally, but more just like sleeping together in a bedroom. Like, so I think that if someone's struggling with that of like, okay, I really want to have sex with this person, but my partner doesn't want to because of whatever reason, like if they're feeling like, I guess, like bad about that, to talk about it, number one, and be very honest, like, hey, I'm upset because I want to do this, but you are not reciprocating it, and show them that, because I feel like that's a part of being vulnerable in a relationship is saying that, and when you do that, now you can have open dialogue about like, well, you know, it's not because I don't want to be with you, and you know, it's not because I don't want to have sex with you, but because I really care about you, want to wait until the time for us to do that. So if we get married, that kind of thing.
So for you, it's more to keep affirming her, make her like realize that it's not you that is the problem. Like, honestly, I wish I could have sex with you right now, but it's actually for the best for the both of us. It's not only for the moment for the two of us. I want something more than that.
And it's like I just got to keep reminding her that I've already been down that road. And that's not a road that we want to go down.
Okay.
We have a much like a better future, and we don't want to ruin that by indulging in this quick activity right now.
Yeah, and I have to trust him in that too. So like allowing him to say like no and be like, okay, I'm gonna separate right now. We're gonna go our separate ways for a little bit because you're feeling this type of way or whatever, and trusting him in that process of like, you know, he has been through this. He has been praying about it, and so have I. And so let's not engage in this and find a way to be apart for a little bit, just like if we're with each other, you know, like just go separate rooms or go to, you know, we leave from where we're at, and that way we can like still remain on that pursuit of waiting.
Okay, Meech, for me, because I've known you for quite a long time, from you and Bakanzi being French first, and me just being the little brother who just you never talk to me or nothing like that. To us actually getting close, I've seen this like your journey, because honestly, I didn't know your belief or spiritually where you were at. You and I we never really talked about it, because I didn't think you had a spiritual life in a sense. But just recently, you've had more of a spiritual life, and you and I have communicated, and I think you've helped me a lot more than you think spiritually, and it's been pretty dope to see. Okay, I think it's been pretty dope to see. So do you think that's partially why you decided to go through this journey of waiting until marriage? Like, so how important is your spirituality to that?
That is the biggest thing. Because first it was me searching for something more, and then when I was searching for something more, in that same time I found God, and then
so hit on searching something more. What?
Search for something more in a relationship.
Okay.
Because I felt like I was always dating for somebody. I was dating somebody for like a year to a year and a half, and then we break up. So it's like I have all these close friends that have always been around for years and years and years. There's something missing with my significant other. Why I'm only dating them for a year, but
Don't
I can
point to
keep
me because it
friends.
wasn't me. That you had to say.
I can keep friends for 10, 15 years, but I can't keep a girlfriend for a year and a half. There's something missing. I got to figure it out. So I was searching for something, and then I found God. And then the way it was presented to me through Michael Todd, he changed the view on it. It was no longer sex is just bad. Sex is just bad. It's bad outside of marriage, and here's why. So it's like, all right, well, maybe I should try this. And then I did it, and then through me trying, it broke off a bad toxic relationship, and it led me to a much better person and a better relationship. So then it was like, this is definitely what I'm supposed to be doing.
Okay, nice. I like that. Praise the Lord Jesus.
You know what I'm saying? No.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
This is what I did.
So for you two, okay, so can you guys talk to, because these guys won't be able to answer this question, so it's more towards you guys. How do you guys keep sex from, because well, clearly you guys are enjoying it way too much. Honestly, this is not what I'm hearing.
Uncomfortable.
No, I
You can't enjoy it too much.
no. So
It's
for
getting worse. Very uncomfortable.
Stop.
what is it? So how do you guys keep it from going to just being a chore to keeping it intimate and keeping it romantic? Because I feel like a lot of times, like at the beginning, it's like anything you do. It's almost like a new year, new me. Like people go to the gym for like 2 weeks and then it slowly dies off. And I think it's almost the same thing in a relationship, like. Because sex can only do so much for you, but how do you keep it from being a chore? Because we all have busy lives and people get busy.
I think one of the things that we learned when I don't know if we must have been engaged, I'm guessing. We were reading this book and it talked about how, like, well, guys and girls are just so different. And so I related with it a lot because it was talking about how girls, like, when you feel really close, when you feel intimate with someone, it comes through, like, conversations and understanding and being known and just like having your hearts connect in that way of just knowing each other that deeply. And I agree, like I felt so close in all of that stuff. And I think for men though, it's just so different. And so like even Bakanzi would say, and this is what the book said too, like that level of closeness oftentimes comes through sex for men. And that was really helpful for me to know of like, okay, I need to understand that when Bakanzi sits with me and he listens and he communicates with me and he hears me out and we're connecting on that level, like I need to do the same thing for him, like physically. So to understand that like I feel that level of closeness that way oftentimes and he feels it a different way was so helpful, because it's not that I still enjoy it and it's fun and all of that stuff, but to understand the depth of connection that can come for men, that was so helpful for me to learn, I think. And so I think that's such a good reminder to me of like, okay, well, I don't want this to be a chore, because this is like it's substantial in marriage to like feel a level of closeness in that way. And so it's good for me to keep that in mind, I guess.
I think just using that word chore, I was like, if this is how chore was, I would love I know. I'm just, I was just thinking of that, and I was like, I don't want to lie, because then people are not going to know what I'm saying. Just the word chore is just interesting, because I hated doing chores as a kid. And I'm like, wow. I just think, oh man, I do think, honestly, like you said, just also continuing to learn about like how you connected. I think for me, I think a lot of people think sex will like fulfill them, like will fix anything. And I think in our marriage, there's just so much more. Like if you take sex away, there's so much more in our relationship that just having conversation, just getting to plan our life together, just like planning trips, just planning when we have kids. And I think I used to think if I got married and we didn't have sex, like I would go crazy. I thought that was like, in my head, at least when I was a kid, I was like, that's 90% of being married. It's like, like having sex. But I think, honestly, sex is not as like if it's like a make it or break it thing. I think if like, let's say something were to happen and like we couldn't have sex anymore, I think we could live a super awesome life of like how much loving each other, just off how we love each other, how we communicate, how much like we actually care about each other and the people in our life. But I do think like she said, we read the book like before, which I would encourage. It's like super cool because it's called For Men Only and For Women Only.
Yeah, we never finished it though. But
and
that
but what we did was, I'm not finished. The one we did, yeah. So, but the thing is, we also read what we actually did first was we read The Woman first. I mean, not both of us. So we switched the books. So like for you two, like so she does. And people think I don't remember anything, and she remembers everything. Okay, so just so you guys know. But I think for like, especially like for people like Meech and Chanel, who's like in a relationship or like eventually are looking forward to marriage, I would encourage for people to read that book, because when we were first gonna read it, people kept telling us we should read it. I'm like, first of all, I don't like reading, so it's and I just all that kind of stuff. But it was super cool when we switched the book, and I actually read the one she was supposed to read. I read the one that's For Women Only, which talks about guys, and I underlined things that relate to me. Because like even though Meech and I are friends, or even Seth, who is my brother, like we're not the same person. Right. So like the person they date shouldn't treat them the way Jenny treats me. So what I did in that book, I went in and I underlined everything that fits me, the things that like connect with me the most. So when she was reading the book, she's like, oh, okay, this is what fits with Bokanzi. These other things, yeah, might relate to most men, but that's not who Bokanzi is. So then she also understands this is how I love him well, because these are the things. And it was like, I thought it was super cool because even when I was reading about women, because I assumed women felt the same way about sex as I felt about sex, but it's like, it's definitely not the same way. But I think as a chore, I've never thought of it, and we've only been married for a little over a year, so I guess to think about it as a chore, we're not there yet, maybe. But I think if I ever get to a point where I was thinking of that, I think that's also another time we would sit down and have a conversation and talk about it, because you do not want to make it a chore, because it is something that you only, once you get married, you get to share with one person for the rest of your life. So it's definitely something you should enjoy more. And if you need to add more excitement with, like, I don't know what, learning more about it or like researching more about it, it's like, I think I would, if we ever got to that point, then I would say, okay, what can we learn more about sex to make it better so it's not a chore? But right now, it's not something that, I mean, I honestly can't even think of us ever thinking of it as a chore, because we've only been married for a year. So it's hard for me to honestly even answer the question of like, to make sure that I don't think of it a chore. But I can see why, if people have been married for 20 years, have kids, don't have as much time, it just becomes as something, oh, we haven't done it in a week, we need to just do it. So we do it. But I think when we get to that point, I think, like we've been talking about, communication is honestly the like best thing, because she could probably go a whole week without sex and not feel as unconnected as I would feel, because sex is a huge thing for guys to feel connected. And that's where I would need to be honest with her and say, hey, we haven't had sex for a week, so let's sit down, let's talk about it. Like, even though we have a busy schedule, let's plan when we'll have sex to make sure I'm not taking it out on you with other things, because I'm thinking you don't want to have sex with me and things like that. So, but right now, I don't feel like it's a chore.
Can you hit more on that? Because like, to where it's like, so when you do get married, 'cause it's almost like uncomfortable, like to have to ask your own wife or husband, hey, like, can we have sex? Like, we haven't had sex for like a week or 2 weeks or whatever. And a lot of people just don't ask, and then they have anger towards them, or like you hold a little grudge against them, like, oh, they don't really like me, like care for me as much as they did before, because they don't want to have sex with me as much. How do you guys create that environment in you guys' relationship, and talk to them, I guess, as well too, so they can learn and it can help them in a sense?
I think honestly, I mean, I think at first it was weird, because it's like, oh, if we go a day without having sex and I'm feeling some type of way, and then I'm like, oh, it's weird, I'm not going to go tell her, hey, we didn't have sex today, and that's the way I feel connected, because then I'm like, oh, I don't want to feel, it's like an uncomfortable thing. But the thing I realized was, when I didn't tell her how I was feeling, it was actually worse for our relationship, because now I was taking it out on the most random things, like we're having a conversation and I don't want to listen, or like I'm not fully there for her and loving her correctly, because I'm still mad, oh, we didn't have sex for a day or for 2 days or for whatever. And now I found, even though it's uncomfortable, the more I've done it, the more comfortable it's been, the more it's easier for me to communicate with her, and also the better it's helped our relationship. Because when we don't have sex, it's not like either one of us are sitting down saying, oh, you know what I'm going to do today? I'm not going to have sex with them to piss him off. Like, no one's doing that. We sometimes get caught in, like, what we're doing. Like, we both also have a life together. We also have a life separate. Like, we have our own friends and all that kind of stuff. And I think sometimes, even with work, we could just sometimes not think about it. And before, I would just feel bad. Like, oh, if she didn't think about it, she must not really want to have sex. It would always be one of those things where it's like, oh, she doesn't like me enough to want to keep having sex. When it's like, wait, what? She married me. Well, if she didn't like me enough, why would we be freaking married? Like, that doesn't make zero sense. So I think for me, I found when I didn't actually tell her like how I was feeling, it actually made it worse for both of us, because now I was resenting her. Now I was taking it out on her, and like weird, like little conversation. I would say for people that like, even when you get married, because people assume once you get married, like a lot of your issues are fixed, like all these things. Like naturally, guys want and need sex more than women do. So if Jenny forgets, or like we just been busy, then I just remind her and I'll let her. I mean, we live together. We share the same bed. I just tell her, hey, we didn't have sex, and we do a better job of like working on like, and I like, cause like some of the stuff, like when I don't listen to her well, like I don't spend enough intentional time with her. I make sure that I've told her like, hey, you should feel comfortable enough when I'm not doing it tell me so I can work on those things the same way I should feel like, hey, because even though sex is like a weird topic, like you're saying, she doesn't, all this stuff, like talking to her about it actually helps both of us, because now she's like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't actually realize, that's how it was making you feel. Like now she gets to work on it to make sure like, hey, we don't go a week without having sex, we don't go a few days without having sex, because she knows that like it makes me feel that way. So I think just it goes back to communicating. Like literally communication for me personally, like has taught me that, like, because I didn't think communication was gonna be that big of a deal, because you live together. Especially for me, her and I work together, so it was one of those things where it's like, oh, I won't need to communicate because we're together all the time. Yeah. But that's definitely not how communication works. So, and I think communication is the most important thing in any relationship, especially marriage, because you just gotta continue telling each other how you feel, and every single day you get closer and you learn about each other. Like, we've been married for a whole year, and I still am figuring out these are little things that I don't do. Like, I could do better to like make her happy. That make her happy and something. But that only happens when she tells me things I'm not doing well. I know we don't like to hear people criticizing us, and it makes us feel a type of way where it's like we feel like we messed up or we're not good enough. But like part of being better at what you do is by making mistakes and learning to do it better and things like that. So I think communication, honestly, is like the biggest advice I would give to anybody, that whether you're a Christian, whether you're just wanting to, even in a friendship, like just communication is like the most important thing, I think. So, but I don't know if you have.
Because that's with anything. Like, if he were to do something that hurt my feelings, like talk to me in a certain way or anything like that, that made me feel sensitive or sad or insecure or hurt anyway, if I wouldn't have brought that up to him, then I would have done the same thing and been, I mean, it would have been easy for me to be resentful or get mad at other things when it has nothing to do with that. So it's the same concept. It really is communication. So I think that's why it's important to communicate about anything. Even if the person didn't intentionally do something, you still have to communicate, because you're just going to hold on to it. And that's the best way to let go of something, is just to communicate it, hear the other person's side, and hear what's going on, and let them know that you're hurt or whatever it is. So I think it's the same as any issue that could come up in a relationship.
So I'll keep hearing communication is key, but even when you communicate with someone, if you say something that someone doesn't want to hear, people take it the wrong way. What do you guys do to make the other person continue to feel comfortable to come talk to you, to where it's like, oh, well, the last time I told her, she treated me this way, she acted this way, so now I don't want to go. Like, how do you guys work through that, if that even like made sense to you guys?
I mean, honestly, I think there's been times that we've communicated well and times that we've communicated badly. Like, we for sure mess that up a lot of times. But I think something that's helpful for me is whenever he comes to me with something that I've done, or if I feel like I've done something wrong, then I go to him to ask if he's thinking that too, and usually he is. I'm like, dang it. But I think it's helpful for me to just remind myself, like, I am capable of hurting people. You know what I mean? And to not feel like, oh, like, I can never hurt someone, like, my intention is good and I would never want to hurt him, but to take a step back and say, like, oh, like, I'm definitely capable of doing something that would hurt someone. And so, like, of course. So I need to approach him with love and apologize, because, like, I'm going to do that a billion more times in our marriage, So just reminding myself, I'm not perfect. I'm so capable of hurting someone and doing something I never intended to do even, And so to remind myself of that, and to just try to just be gentle in that and just apologize right away. And to not even question it all the time either, but to, like, if that's how he feels, then that's valid, even if it's something that, even if I didn't intend to do it, his feelings are still valid in that. And so I need to be responsible for how I made him feel. Yeah. If I did something wrong, or even if I didn't intend to. But if he feels that way, then, I mean, I probably did do something wrong.
So not if you did something wrong. So the question was more in the sense of, like, if he comes to you, he's like, hey, we haven't had sex in this amount of weeks, and you taking it where, oh, okay, well, I'm sorry, like, I didn't know that this is how you've been feeling, and this is why you've been more resentful towards me. How do you take what? So he's not coming to you and trying to, like, hurt you, but he's coming to you to talk about his feelings and what he's going through. And then how do you receive it in a positive manner, instead of like, oh, well, that's not how I meant it, and oh, like, you just need to get over yourself, blah, 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 like, this is not why I'm doing this. Like,
well, I think I'm a pretty aware person, so usually I'll feel bad for something before it's communicated about. Sometimes I'm caught off guard and I don't realize I'm doing something. But I think, like, we've had situations like that before where I've already been thinking it, and I'm like, man, like, I've really, like, kind of fallen short in that area, and I haven't been as maybe aware or no. Yeah, I feel like I've known when I haven't made it as much of a priority as I should have.
Yeah.
So that helps too, because it's like, oh, I already know and I feel bad, and I probably should have come to him first and just told him that, but then he's come to me, and I just honestly apologize, because I understand, like, of course that would make you feel that way,
Yeah.
you know, and even if I don't want you to feel that way, I see that could make you feel that way, and I'm sorry for that.
Okay.
So yeah, I just, how else feels, just apologize.
I think, and her and I both
It's
like
probably done something wrong.
Like her and I are so different. She's so aware of like everything that's going on, everything in the room. Like I'm the opposite. Like, I'm not aware of anything going on. Like I'm not aware that I hurt you. So usually for me it's the opposite. I've realized to not, when she tells me something that was, because I love her so much, whenever she tells me that I did anything to hurt her, just makes me so angry. So then at first, like at the beginning when we were married, when she would tell me that, I would react. I would be super pissed. Then I would try to like, in a way, find some way to like attack her back to make myself feel better. I don't even know how to like if she says,
No,
you didn't do this.
all the time.
But it doesn't matter when I do it with you. I'm okay with it. But in my head, I'm like, so like, it's almost like I'm trying to guard myself. To almost like prove to her, oh no, it wasn't just me. Like you also did this, blah,
Like
blah, blah.
projecting it back.
Yes. So I think for me, the one thing is, I think just I've tried to work on listening, and also listening and maybe don't answer right in the moment and just stay quiet until like because the thing I've realized is usually I blow up, like she says something, I blow up, then I go and I'm like, man, I'm such an idiot. Everything she said is 100, like she's right. So I'm like, so I think for me, I've just learned to like listen better. Like when she says things, like the way I heard her is like, instead of just like wanting to make myself feel better by answering her back and saying, oh, this is what you could have done better, you should have done this, just listen. And then when I listen, usually she's right, because she's been paying attention to everything that's going on, and I'm the one that's honestly not paying attention. So I just usually listen, and then I think when you answer, so like I think for guys, because I mean I was raised with like 7 boys, so arguing is part of like anything that we do. So naturally I want to argue back, and naturally I don't want to be wrong. I'm a very stubborn person, so when she would say something, even she's not even trying to say it in a mean way, I would take it as a mean thing and I react. So now I work more like, okay, I'm just going to listen and then maybe respond to her later on. So I'll listen usually and she thinks I'm still mad, but I usually am like, I don't want to answer her, because I know if I answer her, it's naturally, I'm a selfish person and I'm naturally going to react the wrong way. So usually when I wait, it's a lot easier for me, like maybe 20 minutes later, for me to answer like, hey, you were right and I understand this is what I did wrong. And even if she was wrong in something in that, usually I answer better like, oh, this is also like something we both could have done better, instead of just reacting in the heat of the moment. So usually listening for me in those times and like reacting afterwards instead of in the moment is like what's worked for me. So
I don't know if I could.
I feel like that's still
Yeah.
something that we struggle with, like if we're arguing about
Yeah.
something. Which like you guys know me, G, he's super stubborn. So every time
Nah,
you
he's
try to
pretty-
call
he's
him
pretty-
out on
he's pretty good to
something,
me.
oh
He's
my
pretty good
gosh,
to me.
you're
He
right.
knows
Like
the
Hansi,
mark.
thank you.
very stubborn.
And so am I. You know that too. Like I'm super stubborn too.
Okay.
Okay, all right. But we have to do the same thing of like, okay, like obviously that person is coming to you, telling you because they're sincere about it, and
Yeah.
if you really care and love that person, you're gonna take it in and not just blow up on them. You're gonna actually, okay, maybe I did do that, like, and I didn't recognize how, because to me that didn't hurt my feelings, and it wouldn't have, but maybe for him it did, or vice versa. And so because you love that person, being willing to like, okay, I was wrong, and like kind of like just die to yourself of like, okay, I'm not always right, and sometimes I act out and my flesh is whatever and I'm irritated and I have attitude, but because I care about him, when he tells me, hey, this really hurt my feelings, or you said this and like it hit a nerve, I'm like, oh crap, I'm sorry, like I didn't mean to do that. And then we just talk about it, and sometimes we go in more depth of like, here's what it sparked in me and here's what I felt and this is why I didn't like it. And I think we both do a good job of, okay, I did the wrong thing, now let me fix it and correct it, not like keep repeating it again and again, and then the person just gets furious. It's like, I already told you I didn't like that.
Yeah.
You know, and that's sometimes like the natural thing to do.
I think a big part of that is to be able to get comfortable being uncomfortable. Be comfortable having uncomfortable conversations with your partner, and then also listen to understand, not listen to like respond. Because she's obviously hurting or whatever. So I don't want to respond to her and hurt her even more.
Yeah.
Let me hear her, why she's hurting, and understand it to try to help her so we can help the situation so we're not mad at each other. Because being mad at each other doesn't get anything done. It's awkward in the room. So let's just clear the air. Let me understand it. Okay, next time I'll do better.
Okay.
Instead of just,
And like that thing the other day you said, like, am I arguing to be right, or am I arguing like, or are we trying to be together? Like, I shouldn't come back at you because I want to be right. Because if that's the case, then neither one of us wins.
Yeah.
Right? It feels like a win in my book. Cause I'm like, oh yeah, I'm right, great.
Yeah.
But really, it's like, okay, but did that benefit your relationship in any way? No. So you really didn't win.
Yeah, and also like most thing, when people come and tell you something hard, a lot of people take it as a negative thing. I actually think when someone tells me something harsh, I'm like, that person actually cares about me.
Yeah.
Because it is so tough for me to like, if me says something wrong for me, or like anyone, like even like my siblings, if they do something, go on their tongue, because one, I don't want to hurt them. So me telling them what they did wrong, yeah, I know it's going to make them feel sad and they're going to feel bad. So naturally, we don't want to go tell people we love that they let us down. But so when you have someone that does care about you, they go tell you like what you did wrong, they actually, you have to understand, they truly care about you and they want to fix things and want things to work, or else they don't want to put themselves in that uncomfortable, weird situation. So I think for me personally, when people say, oh, these are my great friends, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, wait, you hang out with them all the time and I can see all these things you're doing wrong, and no one's ever told you that what you're doing is wrong. No one's ever told you that like you doing all these crazy drugs and sleeping around is wrong. Like I'm just like, well, you can't really, those are not really good friends. Because if one of my good friends saw me doing all that crazy things, and I'm not saying like when your good friends tell you something you will change, no, because I've given advice to a lot of my friends and they've not listened in all the bad things that they're doing, or like they've given me advice sometimes and I didn't listen. But like when I see people that say I love this person and I truly care about them, but they see them doing wrong stuff and don't even try to tell them, I'm just like, no, that's not a. So I think for me, I've just learned like when she comes up to me or anyone comes up to me with like something I did wrong, they truly actually care about me and want to fix the issue. Or else if they don't want to fix the issue, they would just go separate ways or like continue to resent you and not come up and be uncomfortable with talking to you and telling you, hey, this is what you did wrong. So I think it's actually like a cool thing when they come and tell you the hard things, because they want you to change so you both can live well together. Just like if I see her doing something wrong, I can tell her so we both live together in our relationship happy. So like Mitra was saying, so like we're not both just there and it's awkward and no one's comfortable, because it's like we both know we're mad and now we don't know what to say and we pretended like something like
when
no
you're
one's
married,
mad.
you
So
can't escape, so you're like, can I handle it?
yeah, and when you're married, you can't leave.
And we
say,
work together, so
Yep.
we can never. And so if it's awkward, it's just like, dang, it's really awkward.
It's like we work
Yeah, you
together.
have to handle it.
We work together and live together. So it's like you really can't like escape anywhere. So,
together.
yeah, we're like, and there's been times like honestly, there's been times where I'm like, I know she's told me something and I don't want to react, so we're just driving home and it's super silent and we're pretending like nothing's wrong, and then I look at like, you okay? She's like, yep. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, I know she's not okay.
Yeah.
And she knows she's not okay. We get home, we go to the same room and we change in the same room. We get in our comfortable clothes. We sit on the couch and then we're like, it's just uncomfortable. And then we're like, okay, we have to freaking talk about this, or else I'm not going to go the rest of the night, the rest of the day. Now we can't watch a movie because I'm just thinking of
I
what
can't
you're
even enjoy
thinking.
it now.
Yes, I can't really enjoy anything. So I
Chill,
think,
pause the movie.
So-
All right, tell me what's wrong so I
No.
can enjoy my night.
no, literally, that's literally what we,
Always.
Oh, you can tell?
that's,
That's how I feel. He was like, why are you lying to me?
so,
Every time I say, I'm good.
no.
I said it was fine.
Yeah.
Literally. And I mean, when you either are really good friends with people or like you're married, do you know when she said I'm fine? I'm like, you literally are 100% not fine. I know
Me
you're not.
that time.
So, but I just think it's always like, because for me, it's always like that. So I'm like, now I can't enjoy anything else we're doing until we actually have that conversation and move past it. And usually it's very interesting, because usually when I either tell her or she tells me and we talk about it, usually we feel so much better and we can
It's
actually
also
move
quickly,
on.
too.
Yes.
Yeah, it takes like a few minutes.
All right, guys. Thank you guys so much for answering the question. It's actually going extremely well. We have a few more questions, and one of the questions is, now we're getting to the point where we're trying to help people who are trying to wait until marriage, but the world tells us that if you're waiting, then you're almost like the weird one. You're the weird. So, what are some advice that you guys, as you guys are trying to work on it, and for people that you guys did successfully, what are some advices that you could give to them to allow them to successfully get to where they're trying to get to? And for you guys, what are you guys doing personally to help you guys yourself from having sex before marriage, basically? So if you guys want to go first, you guys can go first. Unless you guys want to hear from them.
We can go.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, me personally, it was the decision I made to not have sex that holds me strong.
Okay.
And then when we get into heated moments, I always just try to remember what God's told me, and then remember what I've been reading, and just stay in the Word and stay in prayer. Because I've noticed when I'm not reading and I'm not in prayer and I'm not close to God, I feel like it's easier to then fall into sin because I'm not as close. But when I'm on top of my game, I'm reading, I'm praying, I'm doing all that stuff, it doesn't even feel like I even want to do it because I know the direction I'm going and I know it's right.
Okay.
So that's for me, staying close to God.
Okay.
I think that not putting yourself in like a situation where it's going to be easy to fall into that. And so like, for example, like sometimes we'll go somewhere else, like go out or go to like his family's house where we know people are going to be. And so we're not in a situation of like, we can get into that. And also I think another thing for me is like being careful of what I watch on TV or what I listen to, because I think sometimes music is really influential in like talking about sex and like saying all this like nasty stuff, and you hear it so much that you're going to think about it.
Yeah.
Or what you see all the time, you're going to think about. And so like being careful to really just guard your eyes and ears and like of what's going on, so that way it's not on your brain constantly. And then even just talking to each other and remind each other of the reason as to why, and then finding, other ways to enjoy each other's time than getting into those situations and then risking like falling into that sin and losing what you've been working towards, because I imagine that the guilt from that is going to be such a burden on one another and on the relationship that it would be really hard to work through. So,
And also you hit on the point about being the weird one, not caring what other people say. Like not caring about their point of view or anything. Just know that you have a relationship with God, and that's all that really matters is you and Him. Don't care about what nobody else says or thinks about you.
Okay.
I think I've even ran into more people who are like, "That's really cool. That's awesome. I could never do that." And I'm like, "Well, you can. It just takes discipline." Like
Self-control.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of it.
So I feel like be happy with the decision you made. Like you're making it for yourself, not based on what the world thinks and what the world views is okay, but on what you view is okay and what God says. And so keep that in your heart and keep it written down.
Okay, but what about for those people that don't believe though? Like, because for people that do believe, it's like, okay, well, we have a place in a Bible that we can go and actually read these things to help us help us work through what we're going through. Like, what would you tell someone who doesn't believe? Like, how do you cope with that? Do you think? Because for me, what I would say is, okay, well, there's only really one way to be able to overcome this, and for me, it's Jesus Christ, because He died for all of this, all of our temptation. We can overcome them through Jesus Christ. But how do you guys think that there's any other way? Because to me, honestly, if it wasn't for my belief in what I'm trying to do, it would be super hard to do it. Because at that point, then it's like, well, I really don't believe in anything, so why is this even bad?
I think it does come down to your belief, because if it wasn't for that, we would all be out here just going crazy. But like it has to start somewhere, and if you don't have that foundation with God, then it's just going to be like, okay, well, I just listen to my body. Whatever my body wants, I'm going to go ahead and do.
Yeah.
So I think it has to start with what you believe in.
Okay. Well, so for you, I would definitely love for you to touch more on college and how you went about that, and why was that so important for you, and how did you even do what you did? So I guess you'll explain it more. I don't want to tell the people.
I mean, I think first of all, like the generation we live in, like it's just so hard for anyone to like not have sex until marriage, because everyone's like, that's like movies you watch, they're saying how that's like the cool thing. Like the more people you sleep with, like in movie, like if you watch a movie, you're seeing how like the person that slept with a lot of people is seen as the cool person. It's funny, I worked for a college, so I played intramural with some of my students, and we were playing, and one of the kids, to make fun of him, was like, "Hey, you're a virgin, you're a virgin." And I'm like, that's the way he was offending him. He was offending him by calling him a virgin. And I was like, wow, I must be like super old. Like that's the way you offend someone nowadays? It's like by calling them like a virgin. I'm like, to me, that back in the days, that was like a compliment for me. Like the fact that I was able to wait after middle school, after high school, to me it was like, wow, I felt like I accomplished something because it wasn't easy. And so I think for me personally, and like, first of all, there's other things you could do that doesn't keep you pure for example. So for me, it was like one of those things where when I went to college, I was just like, I need to personally work on myself if I want to find someone and like learn how to actually love them the way I want, like the way they deserve to be loved. So the biggest thing for me was like, I thought of myself in college. I was like, hey, if God were to bless me with like a super awesome woman, like if my wife were to come when I was in college, would I have known to treat her like the way I was able to treat her now? Definitely not. Because one, I was very selfish. So I only did what I wanted to do. Like, because I remember in like other relations when I dated people, whatever I wanted to, like if they wanted to do something and I didn't want to, I didn't do it. Like if they wanted to go, if they wanted to go hang out, like so, because those are like very simple things, like of example I'm giving you guys. But in my head, it's like those are big things because in a relationship, you have to both be 100% in the relationship. It can't be one of those things where she's giving 100% and I'm like 50-50, like where I'm doing some of the stuff, but when I'm not in the mood, I don't do it. Like you have to fully commit to each other. So in my head, I was like, the only way I could do that is if I fully work on myself. So I was like, and the way like for like I mean she said it a little bit of it like not putting myself in the situation where it makes everything awkward. So one of the things was when I was in college, I was like, during my freshman year when I decided to, I was like, I'm not gonna hang out with the girl by myself. Like I will never, because they had been times where I did hang out with girls by myself and I'm like, hey, I'm not gonna do anything. We're just gonna hang out, watch a movie and do something. And it always led to something more. Even though it never led to sex, those were all things that were just making me not pure, making me like not think correctly, not focus on God more and all that kind of stuff. So I was like, I just gotta remove myself completely from that because I would always tell myself, oh no, next time I'll be stronger. I've learned from my mistake. And every single time I failed. So from then on, I was like, I don't care what woman it is. I don't care how awesome she is or how beautiful she looks. I will not hang out with the woman by myself. I will always have someone else because I know when someone else is there, nothing will happen. Yeah. So if anyone liked me in college, if anyone wanted to hang out alone, they would call me and say, hey, you want to go to the pool with just us two? I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. I already told my friend I was going to hang out with him. And for a lot of you guys know Aaron. Aaron was the person I used the most. For those of you guys. So I would say that. Then as soon as I'll hang up, I'll be like, yeah, but we can still go. And I already told Aaron we'll hang out. So can he come? And then she'd be like, oh, do you think you can change plans with them? And I'm like, no, I already promised him, so I'm not going to do that. So then they'll be like, okay. Then I'll call her and I was like, hey, come over because I need you to come and hang out with us. So then I will. So when people watch it, this might not be good because they'll know. So then Aaron will always come, and then and if Aaron wasn't available, I always found like one of my closest friends and I invite him. And they eventually all kind of picked up, and they would know. So they would make jokes. Like occasionally, Aaron would be like, "I'm gonna run away when we're all together, just so you two are alone." And I'm like, "If you run away, I'm gonna run with you." So she's gonna go, and she's gonna be by herself. So, and at first it was hard because there was women where I'm like, "Oh, she's pretty," like. Of course, I want to hang out with them by myself and nothing will happen. I would tell myself, but then just staying true to myself and working, because I was always thinking of like the end goal. Like, what is my end goal? My end goal is like, one, learn how to respect women, even if I'm not dating them. Two, learn how to love women the way they deserve to be, like loved. Three was like, when my wife does come around or the woman that I do date where I want to spend the rest of my life with them, I've been working on myself. I know who I am, so I'm not going to try to like do all these crazy things that make me not who I am. And so I felt more confident about myself by not just messing around with like all the women. I felt more confident on who I am. So when she came around, I was like, one, I was prepared for her. Two, I was prepared to know how to treat her well. So like, I was more selfless where like if she wanted to do something, I wanted, like we both got to decide together instead of me being a very stubborn person. So I think for me, and a lot of people would always say, oh, sounds like it was so easy. No, it wasn't easy because naturally our flesh want other things. Like, were there times where I was like, man, I'd rather go use that excuse of like, oh, I'm going to go hang out with her by myself and nothing will happen. Yes, I would love to use those excuses. There was times where I had like my phone tapped to like text someone specifically who I know would like end up leading to more stuff. But naturally, the one thing I try to do is like, if I'm feeling that way, talk to someone. So I usually would talk to one of my friends, and usually I had a good, solid, good friends like in college where they would be like, well, that's not who you are. Like, let me tell you why you're trying to do this, because you've already told us why in the past you've done this, and like you've been good for a whole year, you've been good for 2 years. Why are you gonna ruin it by just going to hang out with this person by yourself? But if you want to hang out with them, and let's all go hang out with them. So I think just having also a good group of people where I can talk to, and they can like actually give me advice out of love and not just because they're Christian. Because I think sometimes the thing for me with even like the whole Christian thing was like I don't know, like naturally, like when people just tell me, oh, because it's the right Christian thing to do, like I don't know if that's necessarily why I only did it. I also just did it because I knew it would benefit me in the long run with my actual person that I was going to spend the rest of my life with. Yeah. So those friends understood. So they didn't come up to me and tell me, it's just a Christian thing to do, so you shouldn't do it. Because they knew if they said that, I'd probably be like, oh, okay, never mind. I'm just going to go do whatever I want. And things like that. They just knew how to tell me like, hey, look, you've been working so hard in this to like not only because you're a Christian, but also because of this end goal that you want. So they would always like give me the right encouragement, like things that I needed. So I think just talking about it out loud, it also made me remind me how crazy I sounded. You know, like I'm gonna go hang out with them and nothing's gonna happen. Like I'm like, okay, I sound stupid because those are exactly what I'm trying to stay away from. So doing that throughout college was hard, but it definitely like right now it's paid off. I feel like I love her better. Like that doesn't mean I don't make mistakes, because I make so many mistakes. But I just think even in those times when I make mistakes now, because of what I've worked on, is like it's just so much better for us two now than if I didn't work on it and all that kind of stuff. But it is hard. Like no one's trying to say it's not. For those people I think that are not Christian, I think the one thing I would say that would benefit them is like when you just continue to sleep around with multiple people, you are literally giving a little part of yourself in a way.
Yep.
I think for me, if you're not a Christian, that's the thing you should work on. Yeah. It's like you do not want to give a little piece of yourself to like hundreds of women, you know? I think what you want to do is like work towards like becoming a fully, like, because if you've had sex before and all that kind of stuff, the longer you wait, the more you connect with one person for the right reason, the more whole you almost become in a way. I don't know if I'm like even making sense the way I'm explaining it, because if you continue doing the same things, it's definitely not going to help you. Yeah. But when you are, because the thing is, if you've been sleeping around and like you're not working towards stopping it, and then let's say eventually 4 years from now, you're like, okay, I want to marry that person, right? But you haven't really changed your habits. When you get married, those things don't just like all of a sudden change. Now you're going to be with your wife and you're going to sleep with your wife, and then after 1 month, you're going to be like, oh, okay, like, well, maybe
This was fun.
While it lasted. Now I'm going to move on. So I think that's why nowadays, like, there's so many divorce rates, there's so many, all that stuff, because everyone's always looking for the next big thing.
Hey.
And I'm like, whether it's like our phones, whether it's
Yeah.
like, but that's the same thing with like when you marry for the wrong reason, you know, because when people nowadays, when I see people, I'm like, okay, you like that girl. What do you like about her? It's like, look at her. Like, what is there not to like? I'm like, okay, have you talked to her? Like, no, but I don't need to talk to her. That is the person like I want to date. So in my head, I'm like, we judge people off the outside. Like you can see me from the outside and say, oh, that guy is such a nice guy. And you can actually get to know me and be like, no, that person is actually a terrible person. Like I just think for me, like the generation we live in, we just, because we want the next big thing, we end up judging people from the outside. Like, oh, that girl looks so good. You know, what happens with, that's not what you want anymore. Like, what about a year from then on when like you see someone else and you're like, oh, that person's better. Then you're just always chasing that next big thing and you'll never be satisfied. And I think the number one thing for those people that are not Christian, like Meech said, is finding something that you believe in. For us, it's easier because we're Christian, because that void of having a woman even fill me up, I don't have that. Like, I think it's just another plus, her loving me and stuff like that. Because everything I need, the Lord's already filled. Like I don't have a void of like anything I'm missing and all that kind of stuff. So the Lord blessing me with Jenny is just like, honestly, it's just another huge plus, and we get to do life together. And I think for people that are not Christian, they will always be searching for something. Oh, yeah. And they'll never know what they're searching for. And like I think they'll always think like, oh, it's the newer car. If they have that, I'll feel better. But at the end of the day, if you buy the newest car, tomorrow it's not the newest car anymore. What happens? If you get like the most prettiest girl today, tomorrow she's not going to be the prettiest girl. Like you might not think that because that's what you think. But for me in my head, I'm like, because of Jesus, like for her, like let's say Jenny, something happens and she's like 600 pounds. At the end of the day, what I love...
That's a big jump.
It is a big jump. But in my head, it's just like, I wanted to make the example super crazy. That the difference is, I don't love Jenny just like because of how she looks on the outside. I fall in love with her because the person she is, how big her heart is, how well she serves people, how much she loves you. There's so many things that even if she was 600 pounds, she would still have those qualities and all that kind of stuff. Of course, we're all, of course, we are working on being healthier. So like that will never happen. But in my head, I'm just like trying to like
get to 600 pounds before you speak up.
Yeah, that's our max. No, but I think for me personally,
601 we're done.
At 601, I can't put up with that. But I just think honestly, I just really honestly think like a lot of people have said, we can't fill. We have so many voids that we're trying to fill. Like without Jesus, we can't fill that. And I think finding the belief of that. And I know this is not like a Christian podcast or like this is not a Christian thing that we're trying to do, even though it is also a Christian thing because we want to do like.
Oh no, I want to give all the glory to God. So for me, it is.
Yeah, but
I'm saying, but also people listening, you don't have to be a Christian.
Yeah.
So it's like, but for us, that's what we believe in.
Yes.
Whatever you believe in,
Yeah.
then it's cool. Like I understand everyone believes in different things, but for me, I believe in God.
And I believe in God too. So I don't want to make it sound like I don't.
No, but I get where you're coming from.
But
so,
yeah,
so
I
this
just
is
want
for everyone. This is
so if
whether you believe or you don't
person,
believe. This is I want it to be a podcast where everyone feels. Like
and I hope like this is like advice that they can take to where it's like, I'm not a believer and I don't plan on being a believer anytime soon. But you can still like learn to live a healthier life that betters you and the person that you're gonna marry. But at the end of the day, I think as long as you don't have Jesus, there'll always be something missing. And you'll never know what that is. So you'll be chasing a million things until you find Jesus. So I don't know how else to explain it but that, honestly.
No, that's very true.
I don't know if you...
Jennifer, please share.
Sorry, that was a long response.
With us, how is it that you were able to... Wait, what?
We forgot the question.
Yeah, can you remind us the question? I got to talk.
You kept going. It was good though.
So it's just, I enjoyed it. No, it's just like
Get it from my mom.
No, the question, Jennifer, is what is some advice that you can give to people that are trying to wait now you remember that they can work on so that they don't put themselves in a situation that they don't want to be in. Because one thing leads to another.
Yeah, and I think you have to communicate what that's going to be for you. Like, what is the level where you're like, okay, this is what we don't want to do until we're married.
Okay.
Because I think you're right. Like, it's not just sex in the terms of what we think of when we just think of sex. There are other things that can happen that can lead to impurity. So I think you really have to communicate about that and be on the same page. Because if one person has one level and the other person has another, it's going to be really easy to get that confused. So it's really good to communicate. Because everyone and every couple is so different, and there's... you can talk about what we think is right or wrong, but at the end of the day, you have to decide like what you're not gonna do. So I think
boundaries almost.
Yeah, and so we communicated about that, which was helpful. And I mean, we still we're not perfect either. Like we still made mistakes and stuff. But I think one thing I would say is helpful for us is we would. Like, if we did something where we were like, oh, man, like, that's not what we want to do, or that's not what we talked about, we would, like, say that to each other. Because I know the times where we didn't communicate about it, it was really easy to just do it again. We would just, like, it would just overflow into the next time that it happened. Yeah. And there were times where we would be, like, sitting there, and we would both know we probably needed to talk about it. Yeah. And I usually wasn't one to bring it up. Thankfully, he was. I learned that about myself. But I really think that was helpful, though, because then once we talk about it, then we've reset the standard. And sometimes you just have to do that. It's really hard sometimes. And so you just have to communicate again about what it is and remind yourself, okay, this is what we're not going to do. So when we did that, it was more helpful to be in a situation the next time we're hanging out. Because it's like, we literally just talked about this, When we didn't talk about it, it was like, oh, we both know in our heads it's going to be easy to do that again. Because we haven't gone back to that place of being on the same page and going back to what we want. And so that was really helpful. And it was like awkward at times because it's like we both know in our heads like, oh man, we didn't want to do that or whatever. But it really was helpful when we talked about it. Even if it was like, oh man, we have to talk about it, I don't even want to. It really was helpful. And I think too, we had a couple friends. We had another couple especially, and I think I had some other friends too that would ask us how we were doing in that area of our relationship, and that was really at first it was uncomfortable for me because I'm like, oh, this is like a newer friendship for me. It was like a newer couple that I was getting to know. But I actually really appreciated that they would ask the really hard questions.
Yeah.
Because that like kept us accountable too of like, oh gosh, I know they're going to be asking us, this question. Or I knew my mentor was going to be asking me, and I was like, oh Lord, I'm going to have to talk about this. But it was actually really helpful. So to have people in your life, if that's helpful for you, to like just tell people, hey, can you ask me how this is going? Because like I'm going to need some help because I know it's going to be hard. And even that can be really uncomfortable and difficult and awkward, but if that's something that could help you, then I just say do it, because like do whatever you can that works for you. We're all such different people and we work in different ways, but if it's helpful for you to have someone just in that part of your life to communicate with and talk about it with, then just do that. Like have someone talk about that with you, because that can be really helpful.
Yeah.
So those are just a couple of practical things that I think were helpful for us.
So at the beginning, we talked about what the importance of sex is. Now I want to get to the last question, which is, okay, if you haven't waited, how it's okay. How do you guys put it out there for people that have already had sex before marriage and that they were raised in a church and they feel like, man, like I can't even have a relationship with God because I feel like I'm going to go to hell and it's just the wrong thing to do and I'm a terrible person?
To remind them that like God does want a relationship with you, and if He wasn't a loving Father, then okay, that would make sense what you're thinking of. Well, I can't be close to Him, but He is loving and does care for you, and there's a reason that He sent Jesus to die for us, was so that we can be forgiven of those sins, so we can still be close to Him, and He wants that personal relationship with us, even when we've made the mistake, because He knows we're going to.
Yeah.
He knows we're going to make the mistake, and that's not an excuse to be like, well, I'll just do it because God will forgive me. No, that's wrong, because that's abusing grace. But just remembering that, I did make a mistake, and I can go to my Father who does love me and forgive me, and ask for that forgiveness and still be close to Him, because when I feel the guilt and the shame, then I want to run and hide.
Yeah.
He doesn't want you to run and hide. That's the whole point, is He wants you to be close and near to Him.
Yeah.
And you know what? This is hard and difficult, but when you expose the shame, you expose the things that, if you've had sex prior to marriage, and you put light on it, it allows you to kill those things and to work forward. When you hide it away and don't let light to hit it, that darkness just festers even more and more and more, and it makes it hard for you to get back to a place of feeling like God does care about me and love me, and you're still sitting in this place of, no, I'm not good enough. God doesn't care about me, and I'm not worthy of His love, when that's so far from the truth. Because if that was it, why would we want to be in a relationship with someone who doesn't want us back and doesn't care for us when we make a mistake?
I also think we all have a different story, and honestly, we could use our story for God. And I think a lot of us, because of like the way the Christian world works, I think we think like because people have had sex, something's like wrong with them. But I think honestly, like we could also remember, like God's told us, like he didn't come for the people that are healed. He came to like heal people. Like, so He came for the broken people. He came for like, so I think for me, the way I try to think of it is like, if you've had sex and you feel like you can never get close to God, then you put in limits on God. Yeah. God is so powerful, and he could use your story in so many powerful ways. Because I think there's certain people Meech can reach that I can't reach. Yeah. Because they might relate more to Meech because Meech had sex before marriage. Just like there's some people that I might be able to reach because I didn't have sex until I was married. That doesn't mean, like I said at the beginning, that God loves me more than Meech or Meech more than... I just think we all have a different story, and we went through things differently. So part of that, we get to use the story of God and how like our redemption, like to like reach other people, like or touch other people, or like get to bring other people closer to God. And it's just cool because like we can all work together, even though we all have different backgrounds, even though we like... I mean, even for instance, Seth and I were literally raised in the same home, but we still have like such a different experience. Yeah. He made a decision, like he had sex before marriage and I didn't. But like, again, it's like he gets to use his story in a different way than I get to use my story because we went different paths, but that doesn't mean we can't use those paths like glorify the Lord. So I think for me personally, don't limit Jesus. Don't limit Him to thinking that you're not good enough or any of that kind of stuff. Also, when you say you're not good enough, you have to remember you're also offending Jesus, because he says clearly that he made us in his own image. So if you're saying I'm not good enough, or I'm not good looking enough, or whatever, or this person doesn't want me, you're also saying God's not good enough, God's not good looking enough, or God doesn't want himself. You know, like he is literally, he wouldn't have sent his only son to die for us if he wasn't willing to forgive you for having sex before marriage or for committing sins. That's literally why he sent him here, so that he is able to forgive us for all those things. So I think for me, I try to not, and there's times where I struggle with certain sins that I might deal with, but I think I just try not to put a limit on Jesus. He's the most powerful God, and he loves us more than anything else. So I think just come back to him, and like he is going to accept you with open arms. So
Yeah, because I think there's so many, like throughout life, we're going to miss the expectations that God desires of us a billion times, you know, but to realize that God knew that, and so that's why he sent Jesus, and Jesus covers that part of us, and so we're seen as righteous in God's eyes. And so if you, whatever sin it is, it doesn't make you any less of a person, or, I mean, it's not even that God doesn't understand it. Like he does, he knows us. So I think to realize, just like literally what you said, come near to God, because in his character, he wants to be near to you. And so if you're not understanding that, or if you're believing that you can't be close to God because of that, then you're not believing in the true character of God. And like you can be hopeful in that of, oh, then I can go to the Lord. Like that's just not who he is. You know, like he is kind and he is loving, and that doesn't change how he views me no matter what I do. And it doesn't even have to be just the topic of having sex, because it, like we miss the mark so many times. That's why Jesus had to come and cover that for us. So to understand, like, I will do that time and time again. Like, I'll miss that mark, but I can just take steps towards understanding God's grace more and more. So, yeah, I just think no matter what it is in life doesn't make you less of a person. God doesn't view you differently. Just like what you said, he wants to be near to you.
Also, a big part of it is sometimes people think that God doesn't forgive them, but really they just can't forgive themselves. They have to be able to understand that we're all humans, we're all making mistakes, so you have to forgive yourself as well, because God already forgave you before you even did it. So forgive yourself and be able to move on from it and accept yourself, accept your mistakes, and move forward and be able to use your story, like B said, use your story to help other people and accept yourself.
Okay. Thank you guys again for coming on the show. I really appreciate you guys. I know sex is a very uncomfortable topic, but as always, God loves you. I love you. God bless, and stay safe. Thank you and love y'all.